You don't apply to be a CIA undercover agent the same way you apply for a job. You don't send a resume and wait for a callback. The agency finds you, or you find them through a process so deliberately opaque that most people give up before they even begin. The application alone takes between 1 and 2 years. 1 to 2 years of silence, of background investigators quietly appearing in your hometown asking your neighbors questions you'll never know about, of polygraph sessions where a technician watches your pulse rate spike as he asks you things no employer has ever asked you before. Have you ever committed a crime that wasn't discovered? Have you ever had contact with a foreign government? Have you ever considered betraying your country? You sit in a hard chair in a beige room and you answer, and the machine decides if you're lying, and sometimes the machine is wrong, and it doesn't matter, because if the machine says you're lying, you're done. This is rank 0. You are not even inside the door yet. You are standing outside in the rain, being examined through a one-way mirror, and the people watching you have not decided if you're worth letting in. If you survive the vetting, the psychological evaluations, the medical screenings, the background check that goes back further into your life, then you can personally remember you are invited to the farm. Its official name is Camp Peary, a classified training facility buried in the woods outside Williamsburg, Virginia. You will not tell your family exactly where you're going. You will tell them something vague. You'll develop a habit of vague very quickly in this career, because vague is safe, and specific gets people killed. At the farm, your phone is gone. Your previous identity is suspended. You are given a training alias, a name that is not yours, and you will respond to it naturally, within a week, because the human brain adapts to whatever it has to adapt to in order to survive. The curriculum covers things that sound exciting in movies and are absolutely grueling in practice. Surveillance detection runs through urban environments, where instructors are watching to see if you spot the tail. Lock-picking, communicating through dead drops, building cover stories that can withstand hostile interrogation, hand-to-hand combat, weapons familiarization, how to drive a car in a way that loses a pursuer without looking like you're trying to lose a pursuer. And somewhere underneath all the technical training is the deeper lesson, the one nobody writes on a blackboard, but everyone absorbs anyway. How to be comfortable lying to someone's face while maintaining complete eye contact and a resting heart rate. Nearly half of every training class washes out before completion, not because they aren't intelligent, not because they aren't brave, but because a certain kind of person cannot learn to fully detach their outer presentation from their interior reality. If you are that person, the CIA will know before you do. Assuming you graduate, you are now a junior operations officer. The agency posts you overseas, perhaps to a city in Eastern Europe, perhaps to somewhere in Southeast Asia, perhaps to a capital in the Middle East undercover as a diplomat, a businessman, an aid worker, an academic. Your real job, the one that appears nowhere in any official documentation, is to identify potential human intelligence sources. This means attending parties, building relationships, going to dinners, befriending foreign nationals who work in sensitive positions, military officers, government ministers, scientists, businessmen with interesting connections. You are looking for what the agency calls the MICE factors: money, ideology, coercion, ego. Every person you meet, a part of your brain is quietly running a diagnostic. Does this person need money? Do they resent their government? Is there something in their past that could be used as leverage? Are they the kind of person who needs to feel important, who needs someone to tell them that what they know matters? You smile at these people. You laugh at their jokes. You remember their children's names and their wives' birthdays and their favorite places to eat. You become, in many ways, genuinely fond of them. This is not a contradiction. The best case officers in CIA history were not cold-blooded sociopaths. They were people with a real gift for human connection, who had simply learned to aim that gift like a weapon. When you've been in the field long enough, when your instincts are sharp enough, you are elevated to full case officer status. This is the rank where the work becomes real in a way that changes you permanently, because now you are not just identifying potential assets, you are running them. A recruited asset is a foreign national who has agreed, for whatever combination of reasons drove them to the decision to spy for the United States government. They have a handler. That handler is you. You meet in locations chosen for their anonymity. You pass materials. You receive materials. You calibrate their emotional state constantly, because a frightened asset makes mistakes, and a careless asset gets caught, and a caught asset gets imprisoned or tortured or shot, and those outcomes are partly on you. The weight of that responsibility is something that no training fully prepares you for. You are now carrying secrets that belong to other people's lives. You are the only person who knows what they're risking. And you are the only person who is supposed to make sure the risk doesn't kill them. Meanwhile, your own cover must remain airtight. Your fake job must appear real. Your fake relationships must be maintained. You are living two full lives simultaneously, and neither one can crack under pressure. The loneliness is not a side effect of this work. The loneliness is structural. It is built into the architecture of the job itself. You cannot tell your spouse what happened today. You cannot tell your parents what country you were actually in last month. You develop a version of yourself that exists in the light for everyone to see, and another version that lives entirely in the dark. And over time, the distance between those two versions becomes the defining fact of your existence. The denied area operator is what happens when the CIA needs someone in the places where being caught means disappearing. Moscow, Tehran, Pyongyang. These are environments where foreign intelligence services are so sophisticated, so pervasive, so deeply embedded in the fabric of daily life, that operating there requires a completely different level of discipline. There is no diplomatic cover to hide behind in a denied area. There is no immunity, no embassy to retreat to, no government that will formally acknowledge your existence if things go wrong. You are, in the most literal operational sense, on your own. The surveillance in these cities is not the surveillance of a lazy authoritarian state. It is technical, patient, and exhaustive. Your movements are logged. Your face is in databases. The people you speak to may be reporting on you without your knowledge. Operating in a denied area means learning to conduct intelligence work inside a pressure cooker, to communicate with assets through methods so indirect and so mundane that no watcher could identify them as communication at all, to live for months or years in a state of sustained professional paranoia that never tips into panic, because panic is what gets you caught. If you reach this level, you have passed through something most people cannot imagine passing through. You have been tested in ways that do not show up on any performance review. And the CIA, which does not give out trophies, rewards you by sending you somewhere even harder. At a certain point in a CIA undercover career, something fundamental shifts. You stop being the person who goes into the field and starts being the person who decides what happens in the field. The transition from senior case officer to targeting officer is not a promotion in the conventional sense. It is a change in the nature of what you are. Where you once built relationships with assets, cultivated them, protected them, you now think in targets. You are analyzing foreign intelligence networks, identifying the individuals inside those networks who represent the highest value, and constructing the operational picture that will allow someone, some junior version of yourself from 10 years ago, to go out and make contact. You are engineering human outcomes from a position of near total invisibility. The psychological profile work at this level is extraordinary in its precision. You are not just asking whether a target could be recruited. You are mapping the entire internal landscape of another human being, their fears, their grievances, their vanities, their family pressures, their financial situation, their ideological fault lines, and you are designing an approach so precisely calibrated to who they are that when a case officer eventually walks into their life, it will feel to the target like a coincidence, like fate. It never is. The paramilitary operations officer occupies a space that official CIA organizational charts handle with deliberate vagueness. This is the rank where the wall between intelligence work and warfare stops being a wall and becomes a suggestion. Paramilitary officers drawn heavily from special forces, Rangers, and SEAL backgrounds conduct operations in active conflict zones that blur every legal and ethical category you might try to apply to them. They are arming and training rebel groups in countries where the United States is not officially at war. They are coordinating with foreign militaries in ways that do not appear in any bilateral agreement. They are running strike operations, establishing safe houses in cities that are partially controlled by hostile forces, evacuating assets under fire, and occasionally doing things that will never be written down anywhere, because writing them down would create a document that should not exist. The paramilitary officer operates in a permanent gray zone, legally and morally, and the agency selects for people who can function effectively in that gray zone without either shutting down ethically or losing control operationally. It is a narrow psychological window, and the people who fit through it are genuinely unusual. When you become a station chief, you become the most powerful CIA officer most foreign governments will never know exists. You are running the agency's entire intelligence apparatus inside a country. Every asset in that nation Every recruited source, every surveillance operation, every liaison relationship with the host country's own intelligence service, all of it flows through you. The station chief is the person who decides what information gets sent back to Langley, which means in a very real sense, you are deciding what the United States government knows and doesn't know about an entire country. The responsibility is not abstract. One compromised network can mean that people who trusted the United States government with their safety are arrested and never seen again. One bad call in a liaison relationship can poison intelligence sharing for a decade. Station chiefs have presided over both brilliant operational successes that will never be publicly acknowledged and catastrophic failures that devastated entire networks. The ones who lasted longest were not the ones who were never wrong. They were the ones who understood that in this business, wrong has consequences that go far beyond professional embarrassment, and who let that understanding sharpen rather than paralyze them. The senior intelligence service is where the CIA's undercover world intersects with the world of actual power. At this level, you are not running operations. You are shaping strategy. You are sitting in rooms with policymakers, briefing National Security Council, sometimes briefing the president directly, translating decades of clandestine operational experience into intelligence assessments that will influence decisions affecting millions of people. The strange thing about reaching this level is what the career has done to your relationship with truth. By the time you get here, you have spent 20 or 30 years professionally constructing false realities, false identities, false relationships, false motivations so sophisticated and so sustained that the line between deception and truth has become genuinely permeable in your psychology. The SI's officer does not lie to the president, but the SI's officer has lived so long inside constructed realities that they understand, in their bones, how thin the membrane between a true account of the world and a useful account of the world actually is. This makes them extraordinarily effective analysts. It also makes certain conversations with them feel slightly vertiginous, as though the ground might shift. And then there are the ones at the very top of the structure, or rather, outside the structure, in the space where the structure runs out of categories. These are people whose identities have been rebuilt so many times, whose operational history is so deeply classified, that even their colleagues at the agency know them only by fragments, that they have ceased to exist in any meaningful official sense. No face in a searchable database. No documented operational record. No name that connects to a real biography in any system a foreign intelligence service could penetrate. They are used for the things the CIA needs done when it needs absolute deniability, not the comfortable deniability of official cover, but the hard deniability of someone who provably does not exist. The psychological cost of reaching this point is something the agency does not advertise and does not fully understand. To erase a person's identity repeatedly, to require them to rebuild themselves in new forms again and again over decades, is to conduct an experiment in human identity that no ethics board would ever approve. The people at this level are not broken. They are something more unsettling than broken. They are completely functional, extraordinarily capable, and they have simply lost access to the self that existed before all of this began. Whether that self is gone, or only buried, is a question that the agency does not ask, because the agency does not find the answer operationally useful.